You and I have been talking throughout the course of this morning. You touched on the importance of what President Cyril Ramaphosa will have to say when it comes to SMMEs and the township sector, the informal sector, which will really speak to some of the cries that we're hearing. I mean, we've heard so far about 3 young people speaking to Belani, speaking about how government seems to not understand the issues that young people are facing.
Yeah, Mpho, I think firstly let's make a distinction in terms of the township economy. By virtue of a business being a township business does not necessarily render it informal. But on the issue of informal businesses, a lot of focus in government has went into formalizing rather than support provision for the informal sector. Look, evidence across the globe indicates that informal sector or informal SMMEs have a huge socio-economic impact. They are a source of income for a lot of families, especially in the context like ours where a high employment rate has characterized South Africa for quite a number of years now. In terms of the township economy, I am aware that there are plans within the National Treasury, especially through the City Support Program, and other initiatives, and the DTIC, and looking at revitalizing, abundant industrial parks. But the pace of delivery has been rather lethargic, mainly because the capacity challenges that exist within the public service. It's only a limited number of people that can do so much at a time. Until the ability of the public service to unlock change and introduce interventions at the required pace changes, some of these interventions will only bring results when it's a bit too late in terms of the discontent that we have witnessed amongst young people, to be quite specific. And in terms of the high unemployment rate within young people, South Africa suffers a challenge with a policy framework that's not necessarily aligned. The education policy and labor market policies are not entirely aligned. We are producing graduates, but the level of skills or the type of skills that we produce as a country are not necessarily the kind of skills that are required in the labor market. And the skills mismatch issue is not a new phenomenon in South Africa. You'd remember that in the mid-2000s, when policies such as GEAR and ASGISA were introduced, one of the reasons that we had to relook at those socio-economic policies was exactly because of the very same issue of a skills mismatch. The focus now will rely mostly on industrial jobs. Hence, you'd remember in 2020 October when the President introduced the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, they focused on industrialization through localization. The main aim of that is to ensure that government makes interventions in sectors that are labor intensive. So I would expect tourism, agriculture, mining to an extent. I remember a few years ago the President noted the mining sector as a sunshine industry. Yes. And a lot of people were quite shocked. It's because of the nature of the mining industry. It tends to be a bit labor intensive in the South African context. So I would expect the President to look at those sectors that are labor intensive as a mechanism to absorb the lowly skilled or incorrectly skilled in terms of the mismatch that the skills they have and what the labor market requires to absorb some of their unemployed youth. And some of the presidential initiatives around youth employment creation, they're there, they've achieved some results. But the scale at which these interventions happen is not sufficient, considering that we have such high unemployment rate, especially among the youth. I think Herman Mashaba mentioned earlier that we're sitting at about 74% of youth unemployment, which is just about right. We will need to increase the pace as a country to rectify some of those challenges.
You make mention of employees, but we know that there is the room and the efforts that have been made to ensure that we have youth employers. And a lot of the young entrepreneurs have spoken about the red tape, that the money is there, the budgets are there, but accessing those funds is a huge challenge.
True. Red tape reduction has been one of government songs since, I think, for the past decade.
Yeah.
You'd remember that improving the ease of doing business has been something that even South African government, when they improve in the ratings, whether it's your World Bank ratings or whether it's your Global Entrepreneurship Monitor ratings, they always celebrated that. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that reduction of red tape is not happening at a speed and at the scale that is required. There was a private members bill, I think in 2017, that was introduced. I forgot by who, but it's a DAMP, the red tape reduction bill. That bill has not been touched on for the past few years. And I remember in National Treasury's economic strategy towards an economic recovery in 2019, they made mention of maybe we should revisit that bill because the challenges continue as it is. I expect the President to also touch on the issue of red tape reduction, lowering or barriers of entry into specific sectors, something that has been a constant challenge or a bottleneck of sorts to allow SMMEs to participate in certain sectors. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there for now, as, of course, we say goodbye, though, to political analyst Matlala Setlhalogile, who's been with us throughout the course of this morning, trying to make sense of some of the important issues that need to be put forward as President Cyril Ramaphosa is set to deliver the State of the Nation address come 7 o'clock.